Everybody, so really good to be back with you in this capacity. It's been a little bit, and we got to be together last week, but it's really good to be back together in this capacity. And I want to start by just asking you a question. What comes to mind? What comes to mind when you think about this? Just what comes to mind? Like some of you, it's like relaxation. Some of you, it's like longing, like, I wish I was there right now. Some of you, it's too hot to be there right now. Right? You got all these, like, these variety of things, right? But just like, what comes to mind when you think about this? How about this one? Let me give you another one. What comes to mind when you think about this? Probably different things, right? Slightly different things. But nothing beats a good minion, right? I mean, but what comes to mind, like if you just give yourself a second, what comes to mind? One more for you. Hold on just for a second, just to brace yourself. But what comes to mind? What comes to mind when you think about this? That's what I'm talking. Finally, there it is. Yeah. Now look, I know we're riling some people up, and I know like it's a little bit of a divided thing for those of you joining us online from different parts of the country. It's a good standard University of Michigan block M. You got to have it, right? And we could have put up other things, but those border on evil, like big S's or big O's, okay? And neither of which, like, right, even okay. So we just, but you got something that comes to mind, right? Something comes to mind. And what comes to mind about those things is honestly not that big of a deal, right? If some of them are attached to a memory or a great tradition, then maybe they feel a little different, and maybe it feels more significant. But there are issues when what comes to mind is remarkably significant. There's a guy named A.W. Tozer, and he once said this. He said that what comes to our mind when we think about God is the most important thing about us. What comes to our mind, what comes to your mind when you think about God, what comes to our mind collectively when we think about God is the most important thing about us, and because it impacts everything, right? And maybe you say, well, nothing comes to my mind because I don't really believe in God. Well, that is still something coming to your mind when you think about God. When you may say, I'm exploring God and I have different thoughts and wonders about God, that's something that's coming to mind. You may say, I believe in God. I might even label myself a Christian or a follower of Jesus. And what comes to mind when I think about God, you could go the whole spectrum. What comes to your mind when you think about God, it has some level of influence. Again, even if you don't believe in God, it has an influence about how we process things, how we think about things. We respond differently in crisis based whether or not we believe in God. We respond differently with people based whether or not we believe in God. We respond differently to the idea about God based what we think about God. Is God angry and far off? Is God removed and just very neutral? Is God creator and then let the thing spin? Is God like, what do we think about God? What do you think about God? What comes to mind when you think about God might just be the most important thing about you. Because at the end of the day, when we begin to think about God, at some level, what we're beginning to wrestle with is what's primal to us, what's just innate, what's in the very core of our being. What is it in us that we would describe as original or first or utmost importance? That's how we're going to define primal for the next several weeks. It's just, hey, what's original? Like when I look at my life, what am I originally like wired to live? How am I originally like woven together and created? What is that? And again, you have an idea of what's primal to you, even if you don't believe about God, and even if you do believe in God. But in the next few weeks, let's just hang out around this idea of what is primal to you? What is first and foremost? What's original? What's of the utmost importance? It's because there's a lot of us who were in this journey with God, or we're around the fringes of some type of life with God, or we've actually rejected a life with God because of bad experiences, and, right, and all of them understandable. And yet part of the reason that it can feel like this life with God or some type of walk with God is never really smooth. It's never really what we might describe as easy on our soul, even when life is hard. It never feels like it has a natural vibrancy to it. Part of that is because we've lost track a little bit of what's primal, what's of utmost importance, what's first, what's the priority. We can begin to see some of that. In fact, if you'll turn here in a Bible, or you'll like open a phone or a device or something, I want to take you to a really well-known passage of the scriptures in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. That's where we encounter the creation story, and in the beginning, God starts creating things. And we're going to jump into the middle of that story where God starts to create humanity, people like you and me, like flesh and bones, living, breathing beings. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. We'll go all the way back to the beginning and just say, hey, can we discover a little bit about what's primal, what was original? Because if it was original, maybe it's still the utmost importance. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, then God said, let us make mankind in our image. It's God communicating with himself. It's the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, God in three persons, but all in one. Like God already expressing himself. He's relational. God's a relational being. He's connected. He's collaborative. He's partnership-oriented. He's team-oriented, right? It's God from the very beginning saying, let's create mankind, humanity in our image and in our likeness, so that they could actually rule and have some authority over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over the livestock and all the wild animals and over all the creatures that move on the ground. Verse 27, so God did it. He created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, in his likeness, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Verse 28, God blessed them. And he said to them, now that you're living, what I want you to do is I want you to be fruitful and multiply, or increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, steward it well. You're in charge. I'm giving you this. You be my representation and my representative. You steward this. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I'm going to give every green plant for food. And so. And then verse 31, God looked at it all and he said, man, this is really good. And then there was evening, there was morning, there was the sixth day of God's creation. Inside these, just a handful of sentences, we see God's original, like what God created us to do, what is still primal to us. And when he started, he created us to be with him and like him, right? Like, let's make mankind in our own image. Let's make men and women so we could be with them and so that they could be with us and that they could be relational like us and so that we could walk in the dynamic of this relationship, and it's all good, right? And then there's sin, and sin is the great interruption to this story, right? Sin is the one-handed shove of the train off the track, which derails so much and which we're constantly trying to pick up the pieces for. But you remember that God also said, I want you to increase. I want you to fill the earth. I want you to multiply. Well, now all of a sudden that increase, it has a mission to it. It has a depth of story to it. And when you combine this mission with what God has already designed us to be with him and like him, here's what we get. God's primal purpose for us, his original design, is that we would be with him, like him, and help others be with him and like him. They would be with him, we would be like him, we'd help other people be with him and be like him. We'd be with him, we'd be like him, we'd help other people be with him and like him. That's primal to us, original to us. Original to the DNA of you and me is that we would be with God. Anything else is a distraction. It's a second best. It's not primal. It's not original. which is why it makes it oftentimes so cumbersome, and why it gets clumsy, and why life feels sometimes harder than it was supposed to be, and why relationship with God feels out of sorts and off kilter so much of the time. To be with him, to be like him, and help other people be with him and like him. And now look, the rest of the story of Scripture is God trying to just help us and bring us back to this what is primal, what is the first and foremost importance. And that's part of why Jesus comes, right? And so Jesus comes thousands of years later, and he's doing all sorts of things, healing people, teaching people, whatever, but he's in these really vibrant relationships with these original group of followers that we call the disciples, these people who were literally following Jesus close enough to become like him over time. That's literally what they're doing. And so one of the things that fairly say, they're like, they've watched Jesus pray, and so they're like, Jesus, like, how do you pray? Like, could you teach us to pray like you pray? I mean, that's a really good teacher. If you're going to ask somebody how to pray, it might as well be Jesus. That feels like a good option, right? And so they do. It's one of the smartest things they do. They say, Jesus teaches how to pray. I want to suggest to us this morning that is still a great question. Hey, Jesus, teach us how to pray. You are still the best prayer ever. Like, so Jesus, teach us how to pray. And so in a couple pockets of the Scriptures, we have recorded Jesus' response to that. One of them is Matthew chapter 6, if you want to flip there. So now you're going from the beginning of the Old Testament Bible, beginning of the New Testament of your Bible. Matthew chapter 6, Jesus, in the middle of this longer teaching, one of the things he does is he teaches them how to pray. He teaches them how to have a conversation with God their Father. And he starts it this way. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 9, he says this, okay, this then, like, I'm going to show you how to pray. I'm going to show you the heart and the dynamic of prayer. And we've often adopted this as a formula of prayer, which is fine, but I'm going to show you how to pray. This then is how you should pray. And he starts with just, our Father, our Father. And again, maybe you're here today, and what comes to mind when you think about God is that you don't believe in God, or that you want nothing to do with God. But I'd be willing to bet quite a bit you've heard that phrase, our Father. You've been in an environment where somebody prayed that. You've been at a funeral where somebody prayed that, or a group of people recited that. Our Father. Jesus starts, it just seems so simple. But here's what you got to understand. Like when you hear these words, our Father, what you got to know is this is Jesus like waving his arm in this huge invitation. He's like, hey, come here. I'm going to show you how to pray, but inside of showing you how to pray, what I'm really going to show you how to do, because what prayer really is I'm going to show you how to relate to the Father. I'm going to show you how the relationship is designed. I'm going to show you actually what's primal to you, how you're actually wired to live this relationship. I'm going to bring not some perfection, but I'm going to bring some ease to the cadence of the relationship for you. And he says, our Father. And when Jesus says our Father, he uses a word. In the original language, he uses a word to them where he would call Abba, Father. But what the word really means is this incredible picture of intimacy. What Jesus is really using is the word that you and I might use today is dad or daddy. Like he's painting this incredible picture of like intimacy and closeness. Like just imagine yourself put yourself like at Lake Michigan or at a pool or in a community place or on a trip somewhere where there's families around and you hear kids yelling, Daddy, 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 look at me. Daddy, look at me. Daddy, see me. Daddy, can I? Daddy, should I? Daddy, can I? Daddy, will you buy me? That one's too often, but like, Daddy, okay? Daddy, 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 right? It's familiarity. It's closeness. It's proximity. And listen. The disciples, these guys that grew up in this remarkably religious culture, surrounded by people who had actually told them they weren't good enough for their rabbinical schools, surrounded by people who were just so bent on keeping a code with Jesus, so much so that they were actually missing Jesus. That's what that's the orbit these guys live in. And so when Jesus says, man, I want you to pray to the Father, this is the level of closeness I want you to have. This is the level of intimacy and comfort and familiarity. I just want you to be able to call him Daddy. And when Jesus says it to them, it is absolutely shocking. it literally in the moment is like something short circuits in their brain. You gotta imagine almost for a minute if the lights kind of go out for them too. They've never heard anything like this. I got to imagine that Jesus prays the prayer slowly because he's waiting for them to catch up a little bit. When you pray just like this, Our Father, I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you. When you pray this prayer, Daddy, I'll be right here. Because it's so revolutionary to them. It's so, look, and if we could be really just, let's be honest with one another, especially here, my West Michigan friends, this is still revolutionary to us. It's still revolutionary to us. What Jesus is doing is saying, hey, look, what's primal to you, what is of utmost importance is that you understand that there is a heavenly Father that created you to be with him and to be like him and to help other people be with him and like him. And that's still so true. And you can be with him. It's Jesus trying to say, look, God, your Father, is close in every way. I'm here in part as his son to show you how close he can be. He's close mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, circumstantially. He is so close. Because he wants to be. See, here's the thing. This will not be revolutionary for you, but God can exist without you. I mean, he can exist without me too, let's be clear. God can exist without us. He's done it before. The question is, does God want to? And Jesus' model prayer is clearly saying, absolutely not. Grab a hold of that for a second. God doesn't even like the idea of existing without you. That's how affectionate, comforting, affirming, close Jesus is as Father, as Dad, as Daddy. Now, for those of us who grew up in environments where the rhythm with an earthly dad was weird, awkward, absent, broken, this is a lot of uphill. A lot of uphill. I've said to you before, like I've spent most of my adult life trying to become more and more at home in this. For those of us who grew up in environments where this earthly dad was great, you have some head starts. Because you have an idea of what it's like to be wanted and chosen and affirmed. But then the risk we just have to be cautious of is no matter how great that was, God's still better. No matter how perfect your dad was, God's still better. No matter how, I say this with all sorts of love and respect, but no matter how perfect our earthly dad was, he was still a broken human. Right? And I know, because I am one. I try and be a good dad, but I'm a broken human, right? It's like God saying, look, Jesus just says, okay, look. He's close. He's close. And for us to really live this, what is primal and what of utmost important, we've got to open ourselves up to this reality that God is closer than we often think, closer than we often give him credit for, closer than we know we deserve. That's really the kicker, right? He's closer than we know we deserve. Our Father, just Dad. It feels almost foreign, doesn't it? Let's go one notch further. Come on, West Michigan friends, again, here help me. Doesn't it feel like borderline sacrilege to refer to God that way? I promise you won't get kicked out of church for it. Well, at least not this one. It's Jesus like waving, come on. But then look what he says. So after probably what I think is a pause in the prayer, he goes down, he says, okay, this then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. like revered and treasured and elevated and respected be your name and your character, because you are holy. You are perfect. You are absolutely 100% perfect. So Jesus has painted this picture with two words, our Father, of how close Jesus is. And then with just a handful of more words, he says, but also, hallowed be your name. He is really, really close, but he is also big. He is big. If close is the comforting, compassionate, tender, loving, gentle side, big is the wild, adventurous, rugged, moving, transforming, not fully predictable and not completely containable expression of God as your Father. It's the big, constantly creative, constantly launching new, constantly doing new, constantly refreshing, constantly able to rebuild and build new. It's Jesus. Oh, wait, he is close. But wait, he is also big. And here's the thing. You and I, we need both. We need both. Of course we need a God who could comfort us when things are hard. But come on, somebody, we need a God who can also help us overcome when things are hard. Of course, we need a God who in the middle of our addiction would be gentle and patient enough to look at us and say, I still love you so much. And I'm close enough that I want you to just feel my breath when I say it. But at the same time, we need a God who is big enough to actually destroy the addiction and let us live free. We need both. We need both. Of course, we need a God who is able to be present and close enough to give us strength for each day. But we also, we were made to live with a God who would lead us on an adventure. Listen, let me just say it again for you. We were made to live with a God who would lead us on an adventure. We need both. That's why Jesus is like, yeah, he is close. I want you to know, and I want to blow your mind, man. It is shocking that I'm telling you the fact that he is close. That is look, I know you had to hit the pause button and all the wiring had to catch back up, but he is also big. He is loving, but he is transforming. And when we get more home in his love, we get a little more okay with his transformation. When we get at home in his love and his closeness, we get a little more okay with the good he wants to cultivate and bring out. We get a little more trusting in the adventure. But listen, can I just tell you that long-term love without an adventure gives way to lots of complacency and entitlement. You want to know how your prayers get really small with God really fast? Is you shut down all of his adventure, all of his bigness. You want to know how life gets boring with God really quick? Is you label him as only gentle, compassionate, and kind, and you lose sight of the fact that he is also wild and creative beyond your wildest dreams. He is both. He is big. He is close, but he is big. He is big, and we need him to be big. Let me show you one more picture. It's just a little shot of a spot of Lake Michigan at night, sky all lit up, right? And I want you just to imagine yourself there, just taking in that environment. It's not nearly as hot there as it is today. Or maybe for you, it's around a bonfire. Maybe for you, it's in the wilderness. Maybe for you, it's on a mountaintop. Maybe for you, it's in the early morning on a deck with a cup of coffee, but something where you look and it just feels big. And here's what I know is true about you and me, is none of us stand in that moment and take all of that in and think, wow, I am incredible. Right? Now, if you do, we got lots of people to pray for you afterwards. And we should talk, but we get reminded, wait, there is something bigger than us. There is someone bigger than us. You see, because part of what you're created for in the bigness of God is you're created to wonder. You and I are created to live in wonder and amazement. We are created to live with with boundless wonder. The moment you lose the bigness for the sake of the closeness, the moment you only have closeness, the moment you lose the bigness and you can fit God in the confines of your brain, you've lost God. The moment you can fit God in the moment you can fit God in the confines of your brain and in the confines of your intellect, you have actually become your God. We need both. We need both. Here's the beauty, right? That this God, that Jesus, what is primal for you and I, what is so important for us to understand, what can get us back into a healthy rhythm or invite us into a healthy rhythm, a vibrancy of relationship with God, even when it's not perfect and even when life is hard, is to grab a hold of this thing that he is closer than we deserve and he is bigger than we can comprehend. God is right now, God is closer than you deserve. It is only by his grace that he is even this close to us. It is only by his grace and his kindness and his mercy that he would allow us to be literally full of his spirit. That close. But he is also bigger than we comprehend. And both of those are primal to this dynamic of being in a relationship, being with God and being like God and participating in his story of helping other people be with him and like him. It's a little bit like, when you wear shoes, it's a little bit like the fact that you want matching shoes on your feet, right? If you wear like a flip-flop on one foot and a platform shoe on the other, you understand the awkwardness of that, right? I mean, you're eventually going to have bad hips. Okay, that's not actually going to work, right? If you put a baseball cleat or a football cleat on one foot and you put really nice dress shoes on the other, that's a small problem. You can't really play the game and you can't really dance. Right? We need them. We need them both. We need them to. These two sync up. They work together. In fact, what I just invite you to do when you go home today and you're going to slip off a pair of shoes to put your feet up or get in a pool or just to relax, or you're going to change shoes. I just invite you, when you slip a shoe off, when that first shoe comes off, why don't you just say, oh man, thanks that you're my dad. If that's a little too far for you off the bat, just say, thanks that you're a father that's close. And you slip that other shoe off and say, thanks for being big too. You get up in the morning, you go to put some shoes on, you slip that first shoe on, and you just say it again. I'm counting on you to be close today, Dad. I'm counting on it. You put the other shoe on, you say, I'm counting on you to be bigger than whatever comes my way, good or bad. I'm just counting on you to be bigger than that. You get home at the end of the day, you slip a shoe off, man, Dad. I know I was super distracted today and whatever else, but just thanks for being engaged, Dad, with me today. Thanks. You slip the other shoe off, I don't even know what you probably guarded me from today. But I was thankful that you're big enough to do it and that you want to do it. And what if part of the rhythm of just slipping shoes on and off just became this reminder to us, yeah. God, you are close. You are a dad who's present, fully engaged, fully active, gentle enough to comfort, but you are a dad that is big enough to lead me into the wide open, to lead me in the adventure, to amaze me over and over and over again. Listen, this is primal to how we live with God. It is of the utmost importance for us. Lots of us know that line from Tozer. Lots of you heard that line from Tozer that we read earlier. I want to read you a little broader context of that statement. Here's what he says in the whole. What comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. The history of mankind is probably going to show that no people has ever risen above its religion, A man's spiritual history will positively demonstrate that no religion has ever been greater than its idea about God. But we tend by a secret law of the soul to move toward our mental image of God. So what comes to mind when you think about God? I want to invite you just to, when you think about God, think, yeah, Dad, thanks for being close. Thanks for being that kind of dad. Hey, yeah, Dad, thanks for being big. Thanks for the adventure. Jesus came to earth in part because he knew we needed tangible, and he knew we would need a lot of reminders. And today I want us just to participate in one of the greatest reminders and help us see how Jesus' life is an expression of our Father's closeness and his bigness. We're going to do it through the taking of communion. For those of you here in the room, if you're on the right side of a row, there's a little wooden tray underneath your seat. If you would just take that, take some elements, and just pass it down. It's just a prepackaged cup. There's a wafer and juice both in the cup. If you're at home, whatever you've gathered together, as Kayla mentioned earlier, just maybe get that ready. And today we're actually going to take communion together. Not going to linger long, but I just want us to see it. See what it is we are actually invited into here. If you want to just begin to peel back the first layer when you've got it. Inside of that first layer, you'll find a little wafer. And this represents the body of the Lord Jesus. And look, how Jesus coming is an expression of how close God wants to be. He became flesh and lived among people like you and me, so that he would actually be able to give us his spirit to literally live in us and us in him, and to live and move and have our being in him. It's this expression man, you would come from heaven to earth as a way to show the Father's desire to be with me. The Gospel of John starts with this assertion that part of the reason Jesus came was to reveal the Father, to give us a really good look at him. And in his body, we're reminded how deeply committed the Father is to being with us, to being close, to being that kind of dad. So I want to invite you today, we'll do this together. I want to invite you to take and eat of this bread as the reminder of Jesus' willingness to reveal the heart of our Father and getting as close as possible to us. I want to invite you to take and eat, remembering him this morning. If you want to peel back that second layer, the juice, this symbol of the blood of Jesus Christ. I'm not sure if there's a greater expression of the bigness of God. There's a resurrection in part because before there was a resurrection, there was a shedding of blood. It's actually Jesus shedding his blood that forgives sins, that breaks the grip of sin, that wins the day, that turns the tide for us. It's like the greatest fight and the greatest victory. It's the most dramatic but decisive win there is. And if his body shows he's close, it's his blood that shows, man, he's big. If the bread and the body reminds us that we got a dad who wants to be that close, the blood reminds us we got a dad that can win. We got a dad that's big. You need a dad that's big, not just close. You need a dad that's close, not just big. So as we take the juice today, just be reminded, man, my God, my dad, he's big. He's big. I invite you to take, drink, remembering him today. For those of you here in the room, will you stand with me? I want to pray for us and just bless you in it. Just kind of stay in this mode of thought. Maybe today you just say, hey, man, I want to grab both of these. I want to soak this up for all it's worth. Let's seal that time. Lord Jesus, thank you for such an incredible invitation in that prayer. Thanks for such an incredible invitation to come back to our roots, to come back to the beginning of our humanity, to be intimately connected to our Father and to be led on a great, purposeful adventure. And I invite, Holy Spirit, you to seal this in us. Would you seal this in us? Would you seal it in a way that lets it keep developing, keep growing, keep being mobilized in us? May we be more comfortable and at home with this truth that, Dad, you are close and you are big, that you really are. You really are our dad. May even tomorrow morning we'd be a little more comfortable and at home with the reality. Tuesday morning we'd be a little more comfortable and at home in the reality. Holy Spirit, I invite you to seal this in us. Do a good thing in it in the days ahead. And church, and the assurance that comes from being loved by a really close, really big dad, I send you into this week as the light of him in the world, in Jesus' name. Amen, everybody. Amen. Church, it's been a blast to be back with you. Hey, we're going to break the paradigm a little bit for some things next week. Bring a friend with you. We'll talk a little bit more about what Jesus made primal to us. We'll see you and a friend next week. See you.